Good afternoon. I'm Jim Hart, and I'll be the facilitator for today's meeting. Welcome, and thank you for participating in this virtual public meeting on the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement for the Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Leasing Program. The meeting will consist of a brief presentation, simultaneous with Q&A, and followed by oral testimony for those who registered. The presenter will be Serena Sweet, the BLM project manager. The slides are available on the BLM Alaska website for anyone who wants to follow along on their phones. Go to the BLM Alaska website and follow the links to the Coastal Plain SEIS planning page to get the slides. This is a virtual meeting presentation. There are some things I need to go over before we start. There is a Q&A box for you to ask questions throughout the presentation portion of the meeting. Simply click on it and ask your question. We cannot answer political questions. We may not have an answer immediately, so please be patient. You can also ask questions in writing, which is probably the best option for more complex questions. We will read the questions and answers aloud if we have time. But the primary focus for today is the testimony. This meeting is being recorded. What does it mean that it's being recorded? The recording will be used to develop a transcript of everything spoken for our records. Virtual meetings may be put on Facebook, on the project website, or other platforms, so people who miss the meeting can view the meeting at a later time at their convenience. This is also a benefit for folks who might have issues with bandwidth-related glitches during a live meeting. If you miss anything, you can go back and to the recording and listen. Phone-in participants can ask questions after the presentation concludes. You'll be able to unmute yourself, but please wait until called on. For folks on the phone, you need to press *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute. Those numbers again, it's *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute. There'll be a brief time after the presentation dedicated for phone-in callers only, so they can ask their questions. At the conclusion of the phone-in questions, we will no longer take Q&As. This is so we can focus on the testimony. After the conclusion of the phone-in questions, we will take testimony from people, 3 minutes per person per meeting. We want to make sure that everyone can testify if they choose. Appropriate language. Anyone who uses inappropriate language will lose their opportunity to testify at this meeting. Disruptive behavior. Anyone who uses this platform to disrupt the meeting will also lose their opportunity to testify. Things like reading poetry or playing music are not testimony and not appropriate for this forum. Priority goes to first-time testifiers, and each person has only one opportunity per meeting. And please don't forget, if you weren't able to orally testify today, you can also upload it to the BLM NEPA register. Look for the link at the BLM Alaska website. With that, allow me to introduce Tom Heinlein, the Acting State Director for BLM Alaska. Tom.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. As Jim said, my name is Tom Heinlein. I'm the Acting State Director for the Bureau of Land Management here in Alaska. So I'd just like to thank you all for joining us as we safely engage you through virtual public meetings. It's important to me that we get this information to you in the most efficient and the quickest way possible, and to provide multiple platforms to receive feedback from you. By doing these meetings virtually, we're protecting the health of the communities we serve, and we're allowing you the ability to get information safely. This process that we're using is more efficient. It won't get canceled because of weather. It allows us to schedule more meetings to accommodate your schedule. It costs the taxpayers a lot less in travel costs and brings in a wider, more diverse audience. It's another tool that we intend to use or continue to use in addition to in-person meetings once conditions warrant. So very quickly today, what we're going to do is discuss the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement for the Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Leasing Program. So after conducting a review that was required by Executive Order 13990 and brought to conclusion with Secretary's Order 3401, the Department of the Interior identified defects in the underlying record of decision supporting the leases, including the lack of analysis of a reasonable range of alternatives in the environmental impact statement that was conducted under the National Environmental Policy Act. The BLM and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are co-leading a comprehensive analysis of potential environmental impacts to address deficiencies that were identified in Secretary's Order 3401 and to analyze potential additional alternatives. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to my counterpart over at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Acting Regional Director Karen Cogswell. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service appreciates the opportunity to work with the Bureau of Land Management in preparing this supplemental EIS for the Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Leasing Program in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Under the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, or ANILCA, the service is tasked with managing the Arctic refuge in a manner which conserves animals and plants in their natural diversity, ensures the opportunity for continued local subsistence use, protects water quality and quantity, and fulfills international wildlife treaty obligations. The Tax Act added a fifth purpose for Arctic Refuge, providing for an oil and gas program. In addition to our responsibilities as a land manager, we have responsibilities under the Endangered Species Act, Marine Mammal Protection Act, Wilderness Act, Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. Thank you to those of you who have taken the time to join this hearing today. We look forward to hearing your comments that will help guide development of the SEIS.
All right, thank you, Karen. Now it's time to introduce Serena Sweet, today's presenter. Serena.
Thank you, Jim. As Jim mentioned, I am Serena Sweet, and I am the BLM Alaska project manager for this project. I would also like to recognize a group of specialists that we have listening in and that will be assisting with these public meetings. These individuals include Tom Heinlein, the BLM Alaska Acting State Director, Kevin Pendergast, the BLM Alaska Deputy State Director for Resources, Shelley Jones, the BLM Alaska Arctic Office Manager, Bob King, he's our BLM Alaska Archaeologist, Craig Perham, the BLM Alaska Wildlife Biologist, Rob Brumbaugh, the BLM Alaska Oil and Gas Section Chief, Chris McGee, the BLM Alaska Subsistence Coordinator, Beth Miko, the BLM Alaska Arctic Anthropologist, Leslie Ellis Waters, the BLM Alaska Communications Director. And then with Fish and Wildlife Service, we have Karen Cogswell, Fish and Wildlife Service Acting Regional Director, Wendy Loya, the Fish and Wildlife Service Regional Director for Science, International, and Migratory Birds, Charlie Hamilton, he's the Fish and Wildlife Service Marine Mammals Expert, Steve Berenson, the Fish and Wildlife Service Arctic Refuge Manager, Josh Rose, the Fish and Wildlife Service Oil and Gas Coordinator for the Arctic Refuge. And finally, Paul Leonard, the Fish and Wildlife Service Arctic Refuge Ecologist.
And now we will begin the presentation. Agenda. Today we're going to cover an overview of the project area, background information, decisions to be made, agency responsibilities, the tentative schedule, and how to participate in the process. I will also be indicating that we are moving to the next slide and reading from all of the slides for everyone that is following along on a hard copy of the presentation. Now on to slide 3. Project area map. Project area. The area comprising the coastal plain includes approximately 1.6 million acres within the approximately 19.3 million acre Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is the predominant land manager in the program area. Other lands in the coastal plain include Alaska Native lands conveyed pursuant to the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, also known as ANCSA, and native allotments. The program area excludes a northern coastal portion of Air Force administered lands near Kaktovik. Lands outside the BLM's Oil and Gas Leasing Authority are those excluded from the definition of the coastal plain in Public Law 115-97, Native Conveyed Lands, and other Native Selective Lands. Now slide 4. Background. In September of 2019, and in connection with Public Law 115-97, the BLM completed the Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Leasing Final EIS. The BLM then issued a Record of Decision, or ROD, on August 8th of 2020. The Record of Decision approved a program to implement the Tax Act, which directed the BLM to manage the oil and gas leasing program on the coastal plain in a manner similar to lease sales under the Naval Petroleum Reserves Production Act of 1976. On June 1st of 2021, the Secretary of the Interior issued Secretary's Order 3401, which directed a temporary halt on all department activities related to the leasing program in the Arctic Refuge, pending a new comprehensive analysis of potential environmental impacts of the program to address identified legal deficiencies. On August 4th, 2021, a notice of intent was published in the Federal Register, kicking off the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement process. Now, slide 5, decisions to be made. The purpose of this public scoping process is to determine the scope of issues to be addressed and to identify the significant issues, including any legal deficiencies in the final EIS related to an oil and gas leasing program within the coastal plain. Supplemental analysis may include, but is not limited to, revision of reasonably foreseeable development scenarios and areas available for leasing, an alternative allowing for less than 2,000 acres of surface development, updated analysis of greenhouse gas emissions, new information related to subsistence resources such as fish, marine mammals, caribou, and other subsistence use and access issues, a wider range of potential development outcomes, and/or revision of lease stipulations and required operating procedures. Information received during this process will influence the development of the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement and guide the scope of the environmental analysis. The BLM will work collaboratively with interested parties to identify the management decisions best suited to local, regional, and national needs and concerns. Slide 6. Agency responsibilities. The Bureau of Land Management is the lead federal agency for the development of the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement. The BLM is also responsible for management of the leasing program and conducting lease sales and adjudicating relevant permits. The Fish and Wildlife Service is a partner with BLM in preparation of the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement and administers surface responsibilities of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Other cooperating agencies are still being determined. Letters have been sent to interested tribes, Alaska Native corporations, and other potential cooperating agencies. Slide 7, tentative schedule. This table includes the tentative schedule for the major milestones of the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement process. Please note these dates are subject to change. As you can see from the colorful graphic, we are in the beginning phases of the overall process. The scoping period we are in now, which is the second orange box on the top graphic, closes on October 4th, 2021. We anticipate that we will have a draft Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement in June 2022 and a final Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement in the summer of 2023. We project that it will take approximately 24 months to complete the analysis process from publication of the Notice of Intent to the Record of Decision in August of 2023. Slide 8. How to participate. Testimony tonight will be recorded to incorporate into the analysis process. You can also provide comments through the NEPA register at www.blm.gov/Alaska to find the link to the project webpage, and also by clicking on the Participate Now button. Emails are accepted at blm_AK_coastalplain_supplemental_EIS@blm.gov, or comments can be mailed to BLM, Alaska State Office, attention Coastal Plain Supplemental EIS, 222 West 7th Avenue, number 13, Anchorage, Alaska, 99513. As a reminder, scoping comments will be accepted through October 4th. And slide 9. Thank you for being here today, and we look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thank you, Serena. So now we'll begin accepting questions from our callers. These are listeners who are not using a Zoom application and have not had the opportunity to ask questions through the Q&A feature. Again, if you are a caller and you have questions, to unmute yourself, you need *6 to raise your hand, *9. Raise your hands first, we'll call on you. And we'll start. Do we have any call-in questions?
Both callers have raised their hands, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
I guess we'll start with the phone caller whose last four is 1517. Sabrina, if you could allow them the capability to unmute themselves. Okay. Caller 1517, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Matthew Rexford, and I am the president of Cocktowvik Inupiat Corporation and the tribal administrator for the native village of Cocktowvik. I'm a lifelong resident of Cocktowvik, Alaska, and I'm representing the majority of my community in these comments. The Cocktowvik will not be Cocktowvik Newt will not be participating in this virtual hearing. We don't know what the supposed deficiencies are with the Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Leasing Program, EIS. We fully participated in the initial effort, and we are concerned that our comments and existence, for that matter, continue to be erased. If you understood anything about our people and culture, you would know that we are in the middle of our subsistence harvest. Today's hearing overlaps with the North Slope Borough Assembly meeting, which is very important to local residents to listen into. We oppose that you are having virtual hearings during the day as if we don't have any other activities that we are pursuing. So your timing for these hearings could not be any worse. Our tribe, native village of Cocktowvik, asked for tribal consultation in June regarding Secretarial Order 3401. And again, it seems we are being ignored. We demand this consultation and will engage at that level and not virtually. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Next for our questions, we have 5251. *6 to unmute.
Hello, my name is Ron Arnell. I'm a resident of Fairbanks, Alaska. I've been leading wilderness trips into the Arctic Refuge for 50 years now. There's no place like it anywhere on our planet. The coastal plain is a very special place. No other place on Alaska's vast North Slope offers opportunities to float wild rivers from the mountains to the Arctic Ocean. The previous administration did not analyze the impacts oil leasing would have on our industry. No mention was made of the number of guides and outfitters oil leasing would affect. No analysis was made of the number of visitor days that would be impacted. Each river, including the Hula Hula, the Canning, the Congogas, and the other rivers on the North Slope that flow to the Arctic Ocean, have specific numbers of visitor days of historical use, and the EIS did not even mention these numbers. So they show no impact on the numbers of visitors that presently visit the Arctic Refuge. It just mentions it will impact people, but it didn't analyze any of the numbers. There's no other place on Alaska's North Slope where these kinds of uses occur in the numbers that we see in this area. This is a very special area used by Alaskans, folks from the lower 48, and visitors from around the world. This is not an area that should be developed for oil. No other area on Alaska's vast North Slope offers the recreational potential of the North Slope of the Arctic Refuge. This is the highest and best use of this area. Keep oil development out of the Arctic Refuge. I hope these inadequacies of not addressing the present recreational use and hunting use on the coastal plain and the refuge are reanalyzed or included in the EIS. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your comments. And I guess we're going to just keep going with testimony. We're going to be calling on participants from a list. It's going to be folks who have been registered. I do ask, even though we're going to call out your name, that you please say and spell your first and last name, and do it slowly enough so the person typing can type your name incorrectly. We will have a timer. When it turns red, it's time to start wrapping up your comment. You have 1 minute at that point. So with that, we'll open it up for testimony, starting with John Sonnen. John Sonnen, S-O-N-I-N.
I couldn't get unmuted. John Sonnen, John-S-O-N-I-N, from Douglas, Alaska. I live on the island. I am a squatter on Queen territory, I think, like most of us have been since the onslaught of Western civilization into the Arctic. But I think that's probably mostly the result of our uncaring communication with our mother, planet Earth. This vindictive inhumanity of profit-seeking commercialism is an aberration in the biorhythmic cycle of our planet, concurrently on the verge of disassembling itself. I'm strongly opposed to any plans to drill in the Arctic refuge. The science is clear. We must phase out fossil fuels if we are to avoid the worst impact of climate change. Right. There's a difference in how we humans communicate, interact with autonomous, self-sustaining, complex, multicellular life systems, and with the immature, complex multicellular systems that require and or expect our life's energy for sustenance. The creation of Homo sapiens from our mother, from this planet, reasonably implores our reliance, communicating with her as if the child, as if we were reliant on her. But instead, we have been treating her, our mother, as an immature, even often as an unwanted offspring, disregarding with indifference our behavior, our raping, but I don't want to politically comment, but that is our mother's level of organic sustenance. I mean, she has provided for us. Her autopoietic system means everything is reliant on everything else functioning. And we are hybrids. We are the we are the human hybrids she's created. On the other hand, like we have corporations and businesses. I've lost a train of thought here, but I can continue on my own off the cuff. We treat her as if she's reliant on us and she should be adjusting to our needs, but instead we should be adjusting to hers. We need to
Sir,
That's it.
in 3 minutes, sir. We need you to wrap up your comment.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry. I could, yeah, lost my place there and I couldn't get to the point I was trying to get to, but the way we communicate with her, the way we deal with her is if we were in control, but our mother is in control of us, and we have been gifted to receive her blessings, yet continuing to rape her pristine places like Anwar are just going to worsen the breakdown, disassembling of her autopoietic system. Autopoiesis is the interaction of everything, reliant on the interaction of everything else to function. We are all.
Sir, Mr. Sonnen, if your comments are going on, don't forget you can provide them in writing.
I will do.
Yeah, certainly do. And again, that's the Bureau of Land Management Alaska website, and you'll see the links and you'll be able to provide comments there in writing. It's probably an easy way to do it.
I'm sorry I ran over. Thanks though for
That's
listening.
okay, sir. Thank you for your comment. All right, next up we have Maurice Carter. Maurice Carter, are you there?
Jim, I'm not seeing Maurice on right now.
Okay.
Want to go to Carol Cairns?
He just raised his hand. He's there.
Oh, I see you. Hello?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
hello?
Sir.
Okay, yes. Okay, so it's Maurice Carter, Mauricecarter. I'm the president of Sustainable Newton, a Georgia-based climate action nonprofit. The term wildlife refuge should be sufficient to explain why drilling is a bad idea. When I imagine places that I seek refuge, oil wells don't fit that picture. And nowhere on our fast-warming planet is this threatened as this coastal Arctic plain. To justify exploiting nature, we tell ourselves trade-offs are necessary. But in this case, there is nothing to be gained by encroaching on one of nature's last unspoiled frontiers. Oil and gas were precious resources of the last century, not this one. Ours is the age of decarbonization. Automakers are phasing out the internal combustion engine and transitioning to all electric vehicles over the next 10 to 15 years. States are moving quickly to ban future sales of gasoline-powered cars. And electricity generated from solar and wind is already cheaper than natural gas, and it continues to drop. All of this explains why oil companies are not jumping up to bid on these leases and why banks are not willing to lend for that purpose. The decision to open the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for drilling was made hastily, as we've seen, and against the overwhelming advice of scientists. It is a move with dangerous environmental risk and no reasonable business rationale. And for those reasons, this decision needs to be reversed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, we have Carol Cairns. Carol, if you wouldn't mind, raise your hand so it puts you up to the top so we can see you. Carol Cairns, are you here? Okay, going once. All right, we'll come back to her. Margie Dashevsky. Margie Dashevsky, are you here? Okay. Sarah Malpin. Sarah Malpin, are you here? Okay. Next up, we have Jim Campbell. Jim Campbell. Next, we have Kent Barkow. Kent Barkow, are you here? Next person registered, we have Wanda Culp. Wanda Culp. And again, if we call your name, please raise your hands. It's easier for us to find you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wanda Culp, WandaCulp. Alaska is truly our nation's last frontier that does not need conquering. In 1971, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act spawned the 1980 Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, which is, as it says, lands conservation for national interest. And ILCA is a two-tiered law that includes Title VIII, subsistence protections for wild food use. The 1959-49 state government was well provided for by the United States as a land base. Additionally, they were provided access to public lands for industrial exploration for economic growth through ANWR. When the state government legislators declare there's too much federal control in Alaska, they are seeking more public land rights. Alaska is homeland to 230 federally recognized tribes, yet the state government does not recognize us as we threaten state sovereignty. Our customary and traditional use subsistence protected by Title VIII is blatantly ignored. So Alaska is out of compliance with not only ANILCA, but numerous federal laws that protect people and environments. The National Environmental Protection Act must be strengthened into assured existence by all federal agencies as is mandated. We are the third largest landowners in Alaska, yet we're the most destitute as our lands are easily exploited and encroached upon without human or wildlife consideration. Corporations are not sovereigns. They carry fiduciary responsibilities to shareholders. For us, the Alaska Native tribal members are the beneficiaries of ANSCA and ANILCA. Alaska Native sovereign rights are federally sanctioned. We have a right to exist in peace and harmony. My message: raise the legal bar for human rights and environmental protections during this global warming crisis. Now we're facing a health crisis as well. Step back from the manic politics and see the holistic view of a very sick planet that should be hospitalized until good health is reestablished. Closely examine the lower and higher court of records review in defense of laws that are constantly under attack by big money interests. The state of Alaska operates under corporate mentality, and the people are suffering. The laws need to be reinterpreted on behalf of the people, away from the land grabbing addicts. My plea to you, Bureau of Land Management: cease the banking on destruction. If environmental damage occurs, it is not economical. Buenos dias. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, let's go back to Carol Cairns. Carol, are you there? I see your hand up.
There
you go.
Hello, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now.
Okay, I was having trouble unmuting. Okay, my name is Carol Cairns, Cairnes. And you do hear me, right? My timer is not going, so I was just wondering.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, I am in about as far away from the Beaufort Sea as you can get and still be in Alaska. I am in Southeast Alaska in Ketchikan. I am a guide in the Tongass National Forest. And years ago, some people came here from the Gwich'in and spoke to a group of us here in Ketchikan about their situation there and the importance of the caribou herd to the Gwich'in people. And so I am just here in support of the Gwich'in people and their reliance on the caribou herd and their continued reliance on the caribou herd because it's an important food supply for them. And it's calving grounds being in the coastal plain is important for the continuation of the herd. That was the message that they delivered to us. And I just wanted to make sure that that message was reiterated and just give my support to the continued wild experience of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And I don't support the oil industry going into that area to develop and extract oil for burning into the atmosphere, causing our CO2 levels to rise even more than they are already at levels that are unacceptable and creating a great deal of havoc here. We here in Ketchikan had about a 5-year drought, so that our hydroelectric power was not even adequate anymore. So it's very important to me that we get our CO2 emissions under control and stop relying so much on fossil fuels. Thank you very much for the time. And I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol. Thank you for your comments. And next up, we have Bernadette Dementieff. Did I say that correctly? Bernadette Dementieff. Okay, next we have Ronald Yarnell. Ronald, if you're there, raise your hand. Next we have Philip Mosier. Philip Mosier.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
All right. My name is Philip Moser, Phillipmosser. Perfect. I live in Juneau, Alaska, and I'm calling in to testify, if I understand correctly, on what the scope of the environmental impact statement should include. I would like to recommend or suggest taking the previous testimony from the Native Alaskan peoples and villages that has been taken before. I would like to recommend or suggest including an environmental or a socioeconomic study on what leaving the oil in the ground would do with the associated carbon outputs for that. In light of the recent IPCC report, it seems more important than ever to look into this, to look into the impact of extracting oil on a global scale. I know at least here in Juneau, some of the environmental impacts that we've been seeing from an increase in carbon dioxide has been the loss of snow cover for cedar trees, which has led to massive die-offs in the winter. It's included an increasingly volatile salmon fishery as streams that the salmon rely on for cold, clear, richly oxygenated water have become deoxygenated and warmer, leading to juvenile salmon dying before they can exit the stream and start their adult life. We've also seen that impact due to heat masses appearing in the Pacific Ocean, which has resulted in less food mass for our fisheries and also for numerous seabirds, which we've been seeing die off year after year in great numbers. We've also been seeing record rainfalls, and we are expecting to see more of that as climate change continues. That's led to increased flooding. It's led to increased landslides, which has already resulted in the deaths of several people around Southeast Alaska. All of this, these sorts of impacts should be included when we're studying the impact of extracting petroleum-based resources and what their associated impact would be as they are used. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Next up, we have Adam Rivera. Adam Rivera.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Adam, A-D-A-M, Rivera, R-I-V-E-R-A. Thanks to the Bureau of Land Management for facilitating this today. I am a writer with the Public Interest Network, a nonprofit family that includes Environment America. We and I have worked for years to build public support for protecting the Arctic refuge from oil and gas drilling. We and I believe that oil and gas drilling and the Arctic refuge don't mix. And the original environmental impact review doesn't do nearly enough to assuage my concerns. The final impact statement minimizes or ignores impacts on wildlife, such as polar bears, impacts on air quality and water quantity up in the refuge as a result of drilling, the high likelihood of oil spills, the impact on our climate. Anytime a final environmental impact statement is incomplete in this manner, it occasions comment, but the stakes are especially high because of the irreplaceable pristine wonder and ecological value of the refuge's coastal plain, the landscape, the wildlife it supports. The Arctic refuge's coastal plain represents the very best of our natural heritage. We should be long past the point where we're even considering putting such a place at risk. We have to be wiser. That starts with being rigorous and honest with ourselves about the impact we have on the planet in processes such as these. So, let's take these impacts into account. I want to say I appreciate the Biden administration suspending drilling leases and the Bureau of Land Management reviewing the leasing program. It's an important step in the right direction. And I know it's not the purview of BLM, but I hope to see the Arctic refuge permanently protected from drilling by Congress. I want to see everyone in government doing everything in their power to prevent drilling in the Arctic refuge. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Next up, we have Matthew Rexford. Matthew Rexford. If you're there, please raise your hand. Makes it easier for us to see you.
He actually was the first phone-in person today.
Oh, he was. I apologize. Thank you. Next, we have Nari Toller. Nari Toller. Okay. Next, we have Gary Mendeville. Gary Mendeville. Gary, do you still want to testify? Mendeville? Gary Mendeville?
No, Jim, he's declining.
Yes, okay. Next, we have Ashley Adoko.
Hey, Jim, I think we're at the portion of the list for people who chose not to testify today.
Oh, thank you.
So maybe we can go back and grab some of the people who we missed previously that may or may not have been on. I think Maurice Carter is the first one on the list that is on now.
Okay, Maurice Carter. Maurice Carter, do you want? Okay, yeah, he testified. Okay, do we have anybody? Guess we're at the point now where did we miss anybody who wanted to testify today? And again, if you don't want to testify, orally, you can always testify in writing. go to the BLM Alaska website, follow the links, and you'll find a link there for you to be able to provide written testimony as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised for testimony. Thank you for attending today's meeting. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to get in touch with us. We'll have another meeting this afternoon as well. Sorry, I got to pull up the time. It's 6 o'clock today, so please, feel free to also attend that meeting. Thank you very much.
Just a reminder, Jim, for those people that want to testify that didn't testify today, when you register for future meetings, please check the box that says you would like to provide testimony, and you'll go into our queue.
All right, thank you very much.
So at this time, if we have people who would like to testify who didn't sign up, please raise your hand. You should see the little hand icon at the bottom of your screen. Once you raise your hand to identify that you want to testify, then we can let you unmute your phone. I'm not seeing anybody's hands raised. We'll just give it a few minutes and see if anybody else joins in or if any of our attendees change their mind. And if you don't want to testify at one of our virtual meetings, please feel free to go to our website and navigate to the Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Leasing Program page in our BLM NEPA register, and you can drop your comments there electronically. And for those of you that need our web address, it's www.blm.gov/Alaska. Again, if there's people on the line that would like to provide testimony, please raise your hand and we will unmute you once you raise your hand. Okay, Pamela, I see your hand raised. You should be able to unmute now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. If you could start by spelling your name.
My name is Pamela Miller, P-A-M-E-L-A, middle initial A, M-I-L-L-E-R. I'm a resident of Fairbanks, Alaska. I have many experiences with the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, from being a field biologist for the Fish and Wildlife Service, a seismic monitor for the Fish and Wildlife Service. I conducted contaminant studies for Baseline many decades ago, and did long-term work in Prudhoe Bay, reviewing oil field permits and contaminants as well, related to the insufficiencies of the analysis of the very first EIS for the Trans-Alaska Pipeline and Prudhoe Bay. The extent of ultimate sprawl of pipelines, roads, water withdrawals, the impacts on wildlife were gravely underestimated in the original EIS for the major oil field complex. What now exists is more than double by 1988 in terms of geographic extent. And the same thing happened with the Alpine oil field. Initially, it was proposed in the Colville River Delta, a very sensitive wildlife habitat, to have 2 drill pads connected by a 4-mile or 2-mile road and airstrip. There was not an environmental impact statement done for that development. As that westward expansion of the oil fields continued, there was substantial additional cumulative impact not predicted at the first step. I bring this experience of what I have seen and been actively engaged in both from the long ago government realm I served in to the conservation realm, because I see that happening as major deficiencies in the EIS for the coastal plain. Here today, I'll just address 3D seismic was woefully underestimated and needs to be incorporated into the EIS. As well, the water quality, the water quantity for ice roads, as well as other water uses, needs to be addressed, and the impacts to vegetation, water, snow, subsistence from snow roads also needs to be addressed. The cumulative impacts of all these activities throughout the external boundaries of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge need to be addressed. We are at a critical time with climate change, and I saw last summer the millions of dollars of repair on the Hull Road. That's just one instance of things are different than they used to be. I'll try to speak more at another hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Do we have any others that would like to comment? I see Margie Deshevsky. You should be able to unmute. Margie?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up my prepared testimony. I've been in meetings and appreciate the opportunity. Is there someone else that would like to go first, or my computer's just being slow?
I don't have any other hands raised at this time, so.
Okay.
No worries. Yeah. If you could spell your name for the recording.
Absolutely. Margi, M-A-R-G-I, last name Dashevsky, D-A-S-H-E-V-S-K-Y.
Thank you. Are you ready?
Not quite. My computer is verifying Word right now. I'm so embarrassed, sorry. I can also improvise, but I did have some prepared remarks.
And you can also deliver the prepared remarks electronically that are through our BLM NEPA register. So don't feel like you have to get it all in today.
I appreciate that, thank you. Well, maybe it'll pop up while I'm talking. I can go ahead and begin. Thanks for your patience. My name is Margi Dashevsky. I'm calling in from Denaina land, and I grew up on the lands of the Lower Tanana Dene in Fairbanks, Alaska. I'm a lifelong Alaskan, calling in to express my gratitude to have the opportunity to essentially strengthen what was an egregious environmental impact statement that the Trump administration made about the Arctic Refuge Coastal Plain Oil and Gas Program. And so my experiences come from a lifetime of engaging and visiting the Arctic Refuge. And my most recent experience, I just came back on Friday from guiding a 10-day river trip on the Wind River, and the water that courses through the Arctic Refuge is one of the 4 guidelines, 4 main reasons that the Arctic Refuge was protected, to protect the quantity and quality of water, which is clearly at odds with having an oil and gas leasing program. And so it's critical that this scoping process bring forward not just the comments that you all hear now, but also the tremendous public input that was already provided in the initial environmental impact statement process that was completely ignored. And so I'm heartened that there's an alternative allowing for less than 2,000 acres of surface development this time around, which is better than previously considered alternatives, but it's still too much. I hope the current scoping process will create the opportunities for co-management. And so I've been engaged in conversations about how the Arctic Refuge could bring about the rightful stewardship of the Inupiaq and Gwich'in people of this land. And I see a profound window of opportunity to indigenize and decolonize the Arctic Refuge designations through an inclusive process guided by the local Indigenous communities, grounded in Indigenous worldviews. And I think that this is a key opportunity to ensure that future generations will also have the opportunity to visit these vast intact ecosystems. I know that I've been nourished, transformed, and inspired by the time that I've spent in the Arctic Refuge. And I just want to say that camping across from the bands of migrating caribou and watching a lone wolf just last week, waking in the wee hours to catch fleeting glimpses of dancing, shimmering aurora, stretching horizon to horizon, and waking up to misty sunrises and frost-rimmed leaves. It's a tremendous privilege to spend time in that area, a privilege that should be afforded to many more. And the relationship of the Indigenous people to that land is a key part of what the refuge is at risk of losing with oil extraction. That oil should stay under the ground and in This time when climate change is impacting Alaska more than anywhere in the world, drilling in the Arctic refuge is the last thing that we should be doing. So the Arctic slope of Alaska is starkly both a site of oil extraction and highly dependent on oil revenue. And we can create diverse economies that don't need this oil to prosper. And so these deeply intertwined realities means that we can do it here. And the Arctic refuge is of global importance because not just of its ecological and sociocultural significance, but also it's a microcosm to understand our global paths forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. And please feel free to provide your comments to our NEPA register as well. Do we have anybody else who would like to provide testimony? Please raise your hand. If you would like to provide testimony, please raise your hand. You should have an icon at the bottom of your screen. And you can also provide testimony electronically through our NEPA register. I see we only have a handful of people left. We'll give it a few more minutes. See if anybody else joins on. So we'll hang on till about 2:15 in case anybody else comes on or somebody decides to provide testimony. And we were also live streaming today's presentation on Facebook, and that will be available after this presentation on our BLM Alaska Facebook page. And I don't see anybody new joining on, but we're still going to hang out for a few more minutes in case anybody changes their mind. And also a reminder that we still have 5 more public meetings. If you would like to sign up for another public meeting, please go to our project page and register for another meeting. Okay, folks, we're going to give it 5 more minutes and see if we get anybody that joins us or wants to provide testimony. And again, feel free to go to our website at www.blm.gov/Alaska. And you can find the project page from that link, along with all the other projects that we're working on. So for those of you that just joined, we're just giving it a couple more minutes for public testimony. If you would like to provide testimony, please raise your hand. Should be a hand icon at the bottom of your screen. So we've just got a couple minutes left. If you don't want to provide oral testimony today, you can provide testimony electronically at our BLM NEPA Register project page, which you can find by navigating through our BLM Alaska website at www.blm.gov/Alaska. And I don't see any hands up. If anybody would like to give public comments, raise your hand. Otherwise, I think we're going to call it. Serena?
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, I think we haven't had anybody join on in quite some time, so we'll go ahead and call it there, and we'll be back for our meeting later tonight.
Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.